Have you ever noticed how silence bothers people? How, in a conversation, a simple longer pause creates discomfort? How the sound of nothing becomes unbearable when we are alone with our own thoughts? This is not by chance. Silence has a brutal psychological power. It reveals. And human beings, deep down, are terrified of what can be revealed when everything around them falls silent. In the absence of noise, there is no distraction. Without distraction, what you hide from yourself begins to emerge. Your insecurities, your fears, your guilt, your frustrations. Everything that daily noise helps to push under the rug. Talking too much, being constantly busy, reacting all the time, are forms of anesthesia, and you don't even realize it. Modern psychology explains that our minds have been shaped to flee from emotional discomfort. We react, we talk, we fill every space with words, music, notifications, anything that keeps us away from the abyss of inner silence. Carl Jung once said, "What you resist persists, and what do we resist the most? Confronting our own emptiness." Nietzsche knew this. He understood that modern humanity is sick, not from an excess of pain, but from an excess of distraction, from being lost in empty discourse, in cheap opinions, in ego battles that serve only to feed a superficial identity. And silence, it breaks this illusion. It forces you to face who you really are without the veneer of words. That's why true silence, the kind that comes from awareness, is so powerful. It demands courage. Being silent is not passivity. It is resistance. It is rebellion against a world that has taught you that value lies in what you say, not in who you are. Silence breaks this cycle. It paralyzes the social game. It returns your sovereignty over yourself. But here's the key. Silence, by itself, is not enough. It needs to be directed, channeled. It needs to be strategic. What separates a silent fool from a silent master? Intention. The former is silent out of fear, the latter out of mastery. And here lies one of the harshest truths about power. Those who do not master their own silence will never master anything. There are moments when silence is not just the absence of sound, it is absolute presence. It occupies space like an invisible giant, suffocating the environment, disarming egos, tearing off masks. It imposes itself without needing to raise its voice. And when that happens, there is no discourse that can confront it. Because while words can be contested, true silence is uncontestable. Nietzsche understood this with brutal clarity. He knew that there is a force in omission that destroys more than any argument. Well-placed silence is a denial, an affront, a verdict. When you choose not to respond, you are not just abstaining, you are saying, with brutal elegance, "You do not deserve my energy." This is not arrogance, it is hierarchy. In a world where everyone is desperate to be heard, those who choose not to speak automatically elevate themselves. They do not compete, they dominate. And that is why well-used silence is one of the sharpest expressions of psychological power. Think of a discussion. When someone falls silent in the face of provocation, the other becomes desperate. They try to poke, they try to pull, they try to force a reaction. Because silence reveals something that most fear, that the other is at peace. And there is no more powerful weapon than serenity in the face of an attempted attack. Silence becomes a mirror. It reflects back to the other their own lack of control, their own ridiculousness, their own anxiety. But be careful. This is not about being silent out of omission or cowardice. It is about knowing that you have the power to destroy the other, and choosing not to do so, because you have already won. And this victory is invisible to shallow eyes, but deeply felt by those who try to hurt you. Silence also has another role. It amplifies what is said. A word placed in the midst of a long silence carries a weight that no lengthy phrase would have. It is like a precise strike after a long pause. It impacts more. It marks more. Nietzsche said that words are merely symbols for the relationships of things to each other and to us. Silence, in turn, is the symbol of the unattainable, of that which is beyond language. It is the territory of those who no longer need to justify themselves. But there is a final stage where this power reaches its most refined form, when silence is not just a weapon, it is identity. When it becomes your way of existing in the world. When you master the art of silence, not as one who hides, but as one who has transcended the need to prove anything. And it is precisely here that the essence of what Nietzsche called true strength resides. The power that is not displayed, but felt. Silence is not for everyone. It demands something that few are willing to develop: inner solidity. Because being silent while the world screams is an act of war. A war against the ego, against the addiction to validation, against the impulse to react to everything that pokes us. And that's why most fail. Most talk too much, react too much, expose too much, desperately trying to prove a worth they have not yet found within themselves. Nietzsche knew, those who need to explain all the time have already lost. Those who need to defend themselves against everything are still not at peace with anything. True power is silent because it already is. It does not seek approval. It does not rush. It does not need to convince. And when you reach that point, when silence ceases to be an effort and becomes your natural state, something changes. People listen to you differently. They look at you differently. They feel your presence without you saying a single word. This is not mysticism. It is psychology. It is energy. It is mastery. But don't be fooled. This path is lonely. It requires you to swim against the current of urgency, haste, and collective hysteria. It demands that you endure the discomfort of emptiness until you discover that the emptiness was actually full of you all along. And that's when everything changes. You stop reacting impulsively and start acting with intention. You speak less, but when you do, you change the environment. You stop chasing being heard because you understand that those who have something truly to say do not need to chase an audience. Now tell me, will you continue to get lost in the noise, or will you learn to use silence as a weapon? Will you keep giving your power to anyone who provokes you, or will you regain control of your own mind?